This video was originally going to be another episode of Creative Tech News, in which one of the stories that I was going to cover was the new 24mm f2.8 lens from Samyang. But upon researching that lens, as well as seeing some of the comments on my more recent videos, and even other videos that have been reviews and comparisons of lenses from Samyang and Rokinon and other brands, I've realized that there's quite a bit of misinformation about that brand in general and its subsidiaries, and I figured it's about time that we kind of clear the air about that once and for all. Let's get undone. What is happening, everybody? I'm Gerald Undone, and today, as I said in the intro, we're going to be discussing the lens manufacturer Samyang and its North American counterpart, Rokinon. I decided to make this video because the sheer amount of comments that I've received on my own videos, as well as other videos and reviews and comparisons I've seen from other YouTubers out there, I decided that there's really quite a bit of misinformation about these brands, and I understand it. I'm sympathetic to it, because the more I looked into it, the more confused I even got, and now that I've even done the research, I still don't even have all the answers. Okay, so let's start off with why you should even care about this topic. Well, in the videography and cinematography realms, these brands are hugely important, not only for driving a little healthy competitive innovation, but also for bringing much needed price corrections into a market that was budget crippling for a budding filmmaker. Now, in the photo realm, these brands are a little bit less important, but you will see comparisons between the big brands that you've come to recognize to these third-party lenses to try to make a value determination. And since one of the most important steps to getting the best value out of your purchase is to be an educated buyer, this information will be useful. Now, I'm sure some of you are already grinning because you know what the big reveal of this video is going to be, that yes, Samyang and Rokinon are actually the same product, or the same brand in a sense. Rokinon is really just a private label rebranding of Samyang glass. So that's reason one why comparison videos between Samyang and Rokinon lenses are unfortunately wasteful, but it gets even more complicated when we introduce the Cine DS and Zine lineups. And the company's websites don't really do a lot to unpack this mess. For instance, when you go to the Rokinon website and you try to view their information, you're led to another place called Elite Brands, which state, Rokinon is owned and operated solely by Elite Brands Inc. Our mission is to continuously develop and offer products with the best price-performance ratio in our industry and the uncompromising attention to quality, function, and design. Elite Brands Inc. is the only authorized marketing agent for Rokinon, Zine by Rokinon, and Samyang branded products for North America, Central America, and South America. Now that kind of makes it sound like Elite Brands is the parent company making the lenses and that they represent both Rokinon and Samyang, but when you go to Elite Brands' website, it doesn't get any clearer. It's just a list of other brands, an ambiguous picture, and then some contact information. Now I did some digging to see if I could solve the chicken and the egg timing between Elite Brands and Rokinon, because both kind of vaguely throw around dates like, for over 30 years. Now it does seem like Elite Brands came first, probably 1979 and in New York seemingly, and that Rokinon was crafted and eventually purposed for rebranding Samyang lenses by Elite Brands. But it's very important to note that none of these companies or names that I've mentioned have any control or ownership of Samyang, which is a publicly traded company in Korea where all the manufacturing actually takes place. Now Samyang was founded in 1972 and is the origin of all these products, including the Zine line of Cine lenses, even though Zine has its own and yet another website that would make you think that they're a third company that was maybe created by Rokinon because of the Zine by Rokinon word choice in the About section for Elite Brands on the Rokinon website. At this point, I started to develop a lot more sympathy for reviewers and commenters who were comparing and recommending identical products. It does really seem like they're positioned to be something different than they are. Okay, so now that we've laid all that out, let's connect the actual product levels between Samyang and Rokinon and see what's going on there. So if we look at Rokinon's product types, they offer 5 different ones plus the Zine line. And the 5 are digital photo, SP, autofocus, Cine, and Cine DS, and then they have a separate tab for Zine. Now the original Samyang lenses that these ones derive from are as follows. You've got manual focus, premium manual focus, autofocus, Cine, and professional Cine. Now for most of the tiers, Samyang's list is a lot easier to understand. You know what you're getting into with manual focus and premium manual focus, where Rokinon's list is a little bit trickier, like what exactly does digital photo and SP mean and how do they differ? Although it should be noted that the SPs from Rokinon are available on Samyang under the premium manual, and they're called XPs on Samyang's side. Now autofocus is autofocus, and that's the most exciting category for me because I'm always looking for great third-party innovation in that space. And Samyang is relatively new in that group, with the majority of their releases coming out in the last 2 years, all with availability for Sony E-mount. Right now they offer the 14, the 35, and the 50mm with the 24mm on the way next month, which is, like I was saying, what this original video was spawned by, the announcement of the 24mm. Now, something to keep in mind with third-party discount lenses is that consistency isn't always there. While Samyang has done really well to achieve great sharpness and image quality, it does come at some costs of some looser build quality allowances and performance inconsistency. In fact, this led to a reputation of Rokinon being established comically as kind of the disposable cine lens, as they would allow a budget-conscious filmmaker to take on riskier shots or more complicated projects without the risk of destroying a $15,000 rental or conforming the entire project to a single focal length. And it's in that cine lens category where Rokinon does better with their naming categories by separating Cine and Cine DS, where Samyang just kind of bundles them together. And to make it even more confusing, Samyang also has Mark IIs of many of their lenses, but the overlap between that and DS isn't very clear. Now, the big difference between the Cine and the Cine DS lenses is the ring positioning. The focus ring is constant throughout all of the Cine DS lenses, which is important, but also fantastic that they did that, because if you want to keep a consistent rig, that's pretty much crucial. Otherwise, every time you put a different lens on, you're going to have to change your rod position or your rings or your follow focus in order to make it line up with the new ring. With the Cine DS, they're perfectly interchangeable now. Now, my first assumption would be that all of the Mark IIs from Samyang were going to be Cine DS, because they don't actually have it broken down by Cine DS on the website, but that is not true. Some of the Mark IIs do not have the Cine DS constant ring position, and some of the non-Mark IIs do. So it's very confusing, and the only real way, I guess, to know which is which clearly would actually be to shop on the Rokinon website. Even if you wanted to order separately, you would use the Rokinon website in order to determine which ones were Cine DS lenses. But I'll put a list in the description that No Film School posted that highlights which of these lenses are available in Cine DS, which is kind of handy. Now lastly, let's draw the line between Zine and the professional Cine, or Zine by Rokinon and ZineGlobal.com. And again, it's a lot more confusing than it needed to be. Basically, Samyang made an important move by taking their already beloved line of Cine lenses and adding some important features and changes to them, like taking the build quality, for instance, and making it more rugged by changing the chassis from plastic to aluminum, or adding a PL mount onto it, and then also sort of changing the form factor to be a little bit more conventional with what people would expect in the cinema space, so that you can have the same accessories and matte boxes and filters, just making the size a little bit more typical. This helped shake off that disposable stigma while still remaining quite affordable and injecting those necessary aforementioned price corrections into a pretty stubborn lens market. And the Zine lineup was Samyang's answer to that call. The fact that Zine has its own website is inconsequential, and I can only imagine that elite brands chose to call it Zine by Rokinon in North America as a way to kind of comfort the customers into not thinking like, what is this Zine? I don't know this company, but it's Zine by Rokinon. You're like, oh, I know Rokinon. Oh, this must be Rokinon's new premium Cine lens. It's to make you feel like, oh, this is the Rokinon that I've come to know and trust. But that's the joke of it. It's not the Rokinon that you've come to know and trust. It was, and always will be, Samyang. All right, now it's time to hear from you, and I have two questions for you that I would love to have you answer in the comments. One, what was your knowledge of this topic coming into this? Did you already know the relationship between Rokinon and Samyang? And two, do you own any glass from either of these brands? If so, which one, and what do you think of it? Let me know that in the comments. Anyway, that's going to be it for me. I hope you found this video informative or at least entertaining, and if you did, make sure you drop it the old thumbs up and consider subscribing. But if you did not find it informative or entertaining, feel free to hit the dislike button twice. All right, I'm done.